All right, guys, Happy New Year. I haven't done one of these just sit down and talk kind of grief talks or whatever in a while because I've just been enjoying filming our normal everyday stuff. But I thought going into a new year, it's a good opportunity to reflect and to go back and to look at how far or not so far we've come as a family in the last year. Of course, this year has been full of firsts without Jen, my wife, and the kids without their mom. So you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about for me, you learn a lot about your parenting skills. You learn a lot about your grief journey. You learn a lot about your own independence. You learn about your comfort level. You learn about some of your greatest fears, some of your greatest anxieties, and you also learn about some of your biggest strengths and your biggest accomplishments and your biggest, you see what you're able to overcome in some of the most difficult times. So this is kind of like a reflection, looking back into this year, this first full year without my wife. How are we? What are we doing? And what do we want to do going into next year? Because I have a lot of personal goals that I want to do going into next year. So in looking at my notes, the first thing I would say for anyone who's grieving or for anyone who's lost someone, knowing when to say yes and knowing when to say no. And that could be in so many different categories of life. The way I thought about it is with others. Knowing when to say yes to help, knowing when to say yes to things that are uncomfortable, to things that are new, to things that are challenging, to things that are scary, and knowing when it's too much and knowing your limits. For me, what I felt, and when I look back at some of my events and things that I did and places I went and people I met, I was eager to say yes because I felt like part of me was running as fast as I could towards anything at all, whatever that was. And it was easy to run towards something different other than the pain and grieving I was feeling in my normal everyday activities, if that makes any sense. So, and I'm not saying this is a negative thing. I'm just looking back at myself and saying, I was running to certain things, whether it's certain groups, whether it's new activities, whether it's a trip, whether it's whatever it was. I found myself saying yes to a lot of things to try and mask the pain. And something I've shared with you guys and something I've shared with others is that, like some famous people in the world of grieving have said, grief will wait for you to do all of your activities, to do all of your new endeavors, to do all of your vacations. And then when you settle down, it'll be there waiting for you. So no matter where you go, no matter where you turn, no matter how far you try to run, it will be with you. It will stay with you no matter what you try to do. So what I've learned, and it's not perfect, but going into next year, is knowing when it's appropriate to go into uncomfortable and new situations and knowing when it's just not necessary. I feel myself personally moving from a survival, barely making it type of human to like okay, grieving, losing my wife, I've now come up with a system that works for right now. And I feel more comfortable than I have in a long time while being in this grief journey. I know what's needed for my kids. I know what's best for them right now. And I don't need to run to so many different A, B, C, D things. And then also there were things that I learned that I loved because of saying yes to too many things. I love to coach. That was something I only did because I was trying to fill my fear and anger and sadness and grief and try to fill it with something positive. And it turned out to be the most memorable couple of experiences. And now that's all I want to do for my son and my daughter as they go through their activities and whatever they do in life. I want to coach them. I realized I enjoy coaching other kids in sports. It was fun. So that's something where like I never would have done, but I did it because I was trying to constantly say yes to new things and challenge myself and kind of get away from the norm. And it turned out to be an amazing experience. Bible study group that I got involved in, taking a couple different trips, the camper and doing camping experiences. Those are all things that I did stepping out of my comfort zone and were positive. I won't really share what was negative, but there were things that I said yes to or I was going to do, and it was strictly because I was running. And I look back now and I'm like, I don't need to do that. I'm okay. So knowing when it's appropriate to say yes to new things and knowing when it's appropriate to say no. Because when you're in grief, for me, you are constantly trying to find an out from the pain. So it's knowing when it's an appropriate out and when it's not. My next note is not holding on to too much at any given time. Our brains and our hearts can only handle so much. I know that to be a fact while we're grieving. And some days your brain and your heart need to be 100% dedicated to grief. And some days it only needs to be a certain percentage, whatever that is. And what I mean by this is our brains and hearts can only take so much. You can't hold the weight of all of it all the time, or you're going to completely lose yourself. And that's something I know I was doing fresh after losing Jen, was trying to bear the weight of the world, bear the weight of everything. My grief, my children's grief, my life, my job, relationships that Jen had, YouTube, certain communities that I was building or losing. And then sometimes you just need to say, I can only do so much. I can only do what I can do. So not holding on to too much at any given time. And whatever that means for you, however that applies to your life, that could be certain relationships that take too much work that you just can't do right now, friendships, support groups, community, activities, hobbies, some things you just gotta let go in grief, because grief is gonna take a little bit, it's not a normal day to day. Now it's filled with a certain percentage of grief and mourning, and so you can't do all the normal things that you normally do. You have to save space for things. And it's knowing how much space in a given day or a given month or a week that you're going to dedicate to this. And some days that'll completely get thrown off, but never trying to bear too much, because that doesn't get you anywhere. You guys have said it from the time, that Jenny passed, was to take care of myself. And I always struggle with this. I always feel like it's so selfish, but I've learned to look at it from a parenting point of view. And you cannot be a good parent, a solid parent, and make good, solid decisions if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating right, if you're not taking care of yourself. And that is so much easier said than done. I can improve on so many levels of taking care of myself today, right now. But I've learned that you gotta take care of yourself in order to take care of the relationships in your life. If you have kids, if you have a job, whatever you're doing, you have to take care of yourself. If that's doing therapy, if that's going to the gym, if that's finding a hobby, if that's going out every so often and having just you time, you gotta nurture and take care of yourself, or else you can't be good for anybody else. And I look back at some parts of 2024 early on, right after losing Jen, 2-3 months after she was gone, I wasn't taking care of myself in any way. And it wasn't intentional. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I wasn't taking care of myself. And that was coming out as a parent, making poor parenting choices, being too tired, being overly concerned with small things as a parent, like just not being the parent that I want to be. And I look at the parent today, and there's always a day when every day I can improve and do better. But I look at today's parent, Kyle, and 7-8 months ago, and it's vastly improved for the better. And it's because I'm sleeping and eating a little bit better and taking care of myself a little bit better and going to the gym once in a while and doing things that make me happy, seeing my friends and nurturing those relationships, making new friends and nurturing those relationships. That's all a part of taking care of yourself. You can't take care of anybody else until you take care of yourself. That's a huge, huge lesson. Always have the kids' intentions first. I feel like I've always had that in mind, but this kind of goes back to running to things. Sometimes when you're constantly running and trying to do things, you're not thinking about the children. It's not intentional, but making sure that they're always having their best intentions. Side note, like I said, you can't have their best intentions if you don't have the best intentions for yourself. You have to take care of yourself in order to do the best job for your kids. Stop, breathe, and slow down and realize that not every day has to be perfect. This revelation just came to me today, literally, as I was writing this, as I was cooking dinner for the kids. In grief, and now if anyone has become a single parent because they lost their spouse, for me, there is a huge pressure and the weight of the world falls on you. It's now all on you. Every day, the routine, school, homework, activities, diet, exercise, things that you're doing, toys, anything you're doing with the kids as the parent, it all now falls on your shoulders. And so I felt like every day was this report card, and I was constantly giving myself a poor report. C-, D+, today was an F, and some days are gonna be that. But sometimes you need to stop, breathe, and realize that today was an A+ just because you picked up the kids from school, took them to their activities, made a dinner, read a book, got them to bed. Nothing crazy, nothing exciting, nothing over the top, nothing extravagant, just today. And sometimes an A+ is just surviving. Sometimes an A+ is doing all those things and going out for ice cream. Sometimes an A+ is, having the kids do chores. It's just being nicer on my report card is something that I'm learning as a parent. Step back and breathe and realize that not every day has to be extravagant. Not every day has to be perfect. Not every day has to be a 10 out of 10. It can just be a boring, solid, normal day, and that's okay. I feel like the pressure I was having in the first year of grief was like, every day needs to be great because the kids just lost their mom and we're going through this horrible heartache. They need constant fun. They need constant excitement. They don't. And I don't. We just sometimes need to be normal, have normal days. And with that, you have more days that you feel, the pain of the loss. And we need to feel that pain. We need to stop, slow down, breathe, and realize that not every day has to be a 10 out of 10, if that makes sense. In grief, something I learned, and that I'm continuing to learn, is that a comfort zone does not exist anymore, at least for right now. You are going to constantly be uncomfortable, and that is the highs and lows of grief, learning how to be a parent alone, learning how to be a significant other alone, learning how to be a daughter without a dad, whoever you lost, or whoever that, in your life it's important to you that you lost, you have to learn to live life without them. And for most of us, when we're grieving someone, we learned how to live life intertwined with that person. We love that person. I wanted to spend every waking moment with my wife, and now that is completely shattered. So your comfort zone is gone. And so you have to learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I have, and I'm continuing to learn how to do that. Because there are a lot of good things that can come from being uncomfortable and pushing yourself to an area where you haven't been before, to a group or a support group that you've never been in, to a different friend group, to different people at work, whatever it is. Push yourself out of the comfort zone, because you'll be amazed at what you find. And going back to the original, not too much, but a healthy amount to where you realize that in grief, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. Everything is different. Everything you're navigating is new. I've never lived life as a solo parent, 34, with 2 kids, navigating life. I've never done that before, and I'm now doing that. So you have to learn what your boundaries are, what your limits are, what you like doing, what the kids like doing, now as this group, as opposed to what we were before. So once you realize your comfort zone is squashed, then I think you can do a lot better in making decisions and realizing where you're going, what direction you're headed. Kindness is key. Just be kind. Grief affects everybody differently. And for me, there are some days where I'm just angry. I'm just angry at the situation. I'm angry at the cards that we were dealt, at the hand that we were dealt. I'm angry that the kids don't have a mom with them, living with them. I'm angry that I don't have my spouse anymore. I do get angry. But it's kind of how you channel that. You can become a cold, angry person, or you can take that and fuel it. Use it as fuel to do good. And I've learned so far in this year to just be kind as much as you can. And there are days where it's so hard, or people say things that hurt your feelings, or people say things that are a little insensitive because they're not in the situation that you're in. But I think for me, one thing I'm learning is grief affects everybody. It's not just me. My kids are going through grief. I'm going through grief. Everyone that was close to Jen is going through their own grieving. And I think there's a tendency to sometimes say, well, I had it worse, right? This is my spouse. I lost my spouse. The kids have it worse. They lost their mom. It's not a competition between me or anybody else who's grieving Jen or the loss of somebody. It's realizing that we're all grieving in our own way. And don't let anger get in the way, because grief wants to make you an angry person. Grief wants to make you upset and tired and frustrated and, pound your fist on the table and say life isn't fair. But if you can keep kindness as your number one focus with relationships, with parenting, whatever, it can go a long way. So kindness is key. And then communication. I'm still working on this one every day. I'm really poor at communicating with people and remembering, Jenny was good at that and kept close communication with family and friends, and I struggle with it, and I always leaned on her for that. So that's something I'm learning. But if you could just communicate a little bit here and there, it makes a world of difference to not be silent. Because when you just kind of close off to the world and just go silent is when you struggle the most. So communicate, be open, share. Where I want to get better and where I want to improve going into 2025. Jenny and I never did resolutions. Don't believe in it. But where I want to improve, I want to build more confidence in myself as a person. I learned who I was with my wife, and that's all I wanted to be. And now that's taken from me. I don't have that anymore. So I have to learn who Kyle is, just me, alone. Who I am as a single parent, who I am as a single dad, who I am as a grieving husband who lost his wife at 34. I have to learn who I am. And in that, my wife built my confidence daily. And now that's been taken away, ripped away. I don't have that person constantly in my corner telling me that everything's going to be okay. You're doing a good job. You look good today. I don't have that. So you have to be your own confidence booster. And so that's something I want to improve on, is constantly talking positive about myself. I want the kids to hear that positive talk, and it makes me a better person, better teacher, better parent, and better spouse. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable, I talked about that. I want to be better at that. Okay, in these uncomfortable situations that you're thrown into, I want to be better at being uncomfortable. Because you're going to continue to be uncomfortable in this new journey, so to get better at being uncomfortable. Sleep, I want to continue to sleep better, get into better sleep habits, because I did see that make a huge difference in my grief. Diet, exercise, obviously 100%. I struggle with that all the time, but if you can just get in a little pattern of any kind of exercise, if it's going outside and getting some fresh air, if it's riding a bike, if it's going to the gym, find something that works for you, find a good rhythm and do that, because it really helps your mental state. Support groups and therapy, something that I have fallen off of a little bit towards the end of 24, and I plan to pick back up in 25. I've already signed up for 2 support groups that start in January, and I'm continuing to do therapy, but just taking therapy a step further and do some of the reading that my therapist has suggested, and then in those support groups that I've signed up for, really dive into those. Again, those did help at the beginning of 24, and then it kind of fades. So I kind of want to continue that now going into 25. And just constantly be a better parent every day. And continue to talk to my wife and ask for support. I think that's something that I forget sometimes. And then I'll have a hard day and I'll just ask Jen what she thinks, what she wants. And sometimes I'll hear a response. I feel like I do. And other times I don't. And so the times I don't hear anything, I kind of take that as her saying, figure it out, dude. Take care of it. You got this. I trust you. Getting a little emotional at the end. And times when I hear her, or I feel like I do, I hear her saying like, no, that's not how we do it, or do it a different way, or good job. Talk to that person like they're there, because I think they're there and I think they're listening. And just keep doing what you love in life and be the best version of yourself, and realize some days that's going to stink and some days it's going to be great. Do the best that you can. Go through the world with kindness. And just try to take care of yourself if you're grieving. If you've lost someone, take care of yourself, whatever that looks like to you. Yeah, those are my lessons that I've learned in grief over this past year, and what I plan to improve upon myself going into next year. So again, like I always say, I appreciate you guys so much. This community, this support, this is like my own personal support group that Jen created for me, and now I get to kind of vent to you guys and then read the positive comments. So I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. I'm hoping for a good year, obviously, with fun memories and good things to come. So I love all of you. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys, love you.